I was last here a couple of weeks ago to talk about a number of things. I wish to announce that I will be sworn in tomorrow at State House in Entebbe at 10 a.m. as the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. And thereafter, the Parliament will invite me to be sworn in as an ex-officio MP without a constituency. Because when you are ex-officio, you are there by virtue of being a member of the executive. I was very pleased during the vetting, and as I told the press, the MPs impressed me by their focus. The leader of opposition, for instance, asked me, what will I do as Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs to make the constitutional body known as the National Consultative Forum for Political Parties effective? As usual, sincerity is the best policy. I think God rewards those who are sincere because he sees the heart, does not just hear your words. So I told the leader of opposition that we are concerned that some parties with representation in parliament don't want to join the Inter-Party Organization for Dialogue, IPOD. We hope that since the NRM chairs the National Consultative Forum for Political Parties and the NUP is the deputy chair, we shall try to invest more in order to create a better climate for dialogue. It is true that the current climate is not very conducive for dialogue, but we cannot wait for a good climate. That's why farmers do irrigation. You don't wait for the rain. You try your best to do whatever you can so that the crops don't die. So that is an important agenda that I shared with the parliamentary committee. They also talked about political prisoners. I told them that the matter is in court, so it is not necessary for me to express a lot of opinions, but I do believe that it will be important to offer some fresh advice on how the government can deal with those cases. It's my duty to serve without bias. I also told them that unlike other members of the cabinet who are appointed based on either winning elections or on account of what the head of state thinks they can do for the government, I have been appointed pursuant to a cooperation agreement. I want to reiterate that DP approved 3 strategic objectives when we had our retreat at a Sela Hotel last year after the 2021 elections. The National Organizing Secretary of the party gave us our report card. It was not as bad as people wanted to appear. You all know that we went into the 2021 elections with 4 members of parliament. 10 of our 15 MPs had crossed, 1 had died. So we had only 4 MPs when we went into the elections. We came back with 9. Those 9 are worth more than their weight in gold. So I told the committee that my terms of reference and the job that DP will be spearheading is clearly stated in the cooperation agreement. I urge Ugandans not to mix up what they call a merger. A merger means you become one. In other words, one political party and another or others end up becoming one political party. That's what we call a merger. Then we have a coalition. A coalition can be before elections or after elections. I have my own experience with coalitions before elections. I'll not tire you with my experience because I've not come here to lament. I'm facing forward. Then there's an alliance. Then there is cooperation. Cooperation is on specific areas. For instance, before we had the East African Community, we had East African Cooperation, which was a lower rank of what became the East African Community. Even before we created the East African Community, there was something known as the East African Common Services Organization. The East African Common Services Organization was about cooperating to have a common railway system. We had East African Railways, common air transportation, East African Airways, and East African Customs. So it is our duty not to overreact when people misunderstand this cooperation. That's why you have noticed that I've not been as tough as usually I am. Because the Norbert Mao, you know, would not just sit by and listen as people attack him and call him names. You know me better by now. I would at least release a few missiles. But I've decided that when people are speaking out of limited information, it is your duty to give information. So I have decided deliberately to spend time explaining to our leaders what really happened. But also, given the sensitivity of the matter, I have to tell you I'm very proud of the DP Management Committee. The DP Management Committee has 11 members. I chair the Management Committee as president. The Vice President, Honorable Mukasambide, is a member. The Secretary General, Dr. Gerard Siranda, is a member. The National Chairman, Dr. Mayambala, is a member. The National Treasurer, Honorable Babirie Kabanda, is a member. The National Legal Advisor, Omukungu Narukola Luyimbazi, is a member. The National Organizing Secretary, Herbert Rutagwera, is a member. The President of the UYD, Ismail Kiria, is a member. The President of the Women's League, Aisha Nuriat Waligo, is a member. The National Publicity Secretary, Okoler Opio Loamanu, who is right here, is a member. The Deputy Secretary General also sits in that meeting, plus the Parliamentary Whip. Those are members. Now, that organ meets every Wednesday. every Wednesday, and the quorum is 4. But everybody gets notice. I want to assure you that I briefed the management committee, which is a constitutional body to do work on behalf of NEC. And I'm actually very proud of the management committee because nothing leaked for 1 full year. You know, Kampala, according to Binaisa, former president, is said to be a city of 7 hills and 7 rumors a day. The fact that nothing leaked is actually a surprise. I think DP leaders can actually manage government because they never leaked anything. I was very open to them. I even told them I'm in talks with President Museveni. And I gave them the reason. Number one, Uganda is at a turning point. When Uganda turns or changes, what will be the position of the Democratic Party? We have got a ruling party that has more or less fused itself with the government. Right now, no wonder when you are in government, people perceive it to be the same as joining NRM. I want to assure Ugandans, I will take that misunderstanding with all the kindness and charity because I know it is a reflection of the reality you see. Because wherever you go, the NRM members behave as if they are all in government. And yet the government is supposed to be composed of officials from a political party that has won elections to run the state. So now the state and the ruling party appear to be one. We have to disentangle. It is like thinking that Norbert Mao and DP are one and the same. Or the National Executive Committee being the same as the party. The two are separate. When the delegates meet, they may decide to elect a new team. They must find a party which is intact. Now, in Uganda, because of our violent history, we have never seen peaceful change. So, according to the agreement, the Democratic Party now has an opportunity to participate in government on the issues of peaceful presidential transition. It is there in the document, in those very words. Somebody asked me, are you sure those words are there? They are there. 2, national dialogue. National dialogue is different from our thing of IPOD, where we are accused of taking tea and receiving bribes. This one is national. I don't think you can bribe 45 million Ugandans. We have many models of national dialogue. Why do we need a national dialogue? There was no Uganda before the colonialists came. Every community had their government. Buganda had its government. Bunyoro had its government. Toro had its government. Ankole had its government. Bagisu had a way they were governing themselves. The Acholi, the Lukbaras, the Karemojong. Then the British came and just fenced us all in. We could not even communicate to each other. That's why I'm talking to you in English. Because if I go to Elgon, I say, Kobango, they say, Makwa. And maybe we'll start a fight thinking it is an insult. We tried to find a formula to work together under the leadership of our former Prime Minister and party leader, Ben Kiwanuka. They gave Uganda the 1962 constitution. The 1962 constitution died in infancy because it died when it was aged 4. You know, infant mortality is about how long a child lives before the age of 5. How many children die before the age of 5? So you could say Uganda's first constitution was a victim of infant mortality because it was not vaccinated against the killer diseases that kill infants. And then we went on through a season when there were no parties. We had a military dictatorship. Then we had a series of governments. Then the Bushmen came, led by President Yoweri Museveni. They chased everyone out of town and tried to patch up the country. Amidst a lot of resistance from rebel groups. Despite the challenges, they gave us a constitution, the 1995 constitution. And all Ugandans said, we are now happy. Finally, we know that a president can only lead for 10 years, then he or she goes. But that was not to be. They started removing the internal organs from the constitution. But that constitution does not belong to the NRM. It does not belong to the government. It is a people's constitution. The people must own the constitution. By the way, the fact that somebody is saying no to your demands does not mean your demands are wrong. You just have to insist. Like DP insisted on multipartyism. We insisted and insisted. Some of the people now with us in the opposition, we are saying multipartyism cannot work in Uganda. So the national dialogue is to allow the building blocks of Uganda to come together and craft a new consensus. How we can live together in peace. You can live in peace with even people you don't like. What are these building blocks? Our communities, traditional institutions. We have political parties. We have religious bodies. We have civil society. Even the diaspora. We cannot exclude the diaspora from the national dialogue. There are citizens in Uganda that are trusted. The other agenda which DP has to spearhead through the government is constitutional reforms. DP is a signatory of the Citizens' Compact on Free and Fair Elections. It is a rack of proposals that will deal with the biggest problem we face now, known as the crisis of legitimacy. We must solve that crisis of legitimacy. So how do I intend to work? Number one, for the DP leaders with all the good ideas, this is now your time for us to come up with recommendations. Fortunately, we have a lot of alternative policies on the issues of national dialogue, on presidential transition, on constitutional reforms. We have a lot of ideas on that. It is our duty to make those recommendations to the government. Being in government means that you no longer have to speak through the press conferences. You no longer have to go and shout on radio because you have the opportunity to talk to decision makers. It will be our duty to make recommendations to the president of Uganda. to make sure we get his buy-in, the president of Uganda must be made to agree with the proposals for them to work. I think this is DP's moment. To the members of the party who feel offended that I never consulted you one by one, I'll have the opportunity to explain myself. And I expect that you'll understand, because I've done things before. I remember myself and the same Secretary General signed what is known as the agreement establishing the DP block. There wasn't as much noise. Perhaps because it was expected